Hi, my name is Martin Webb, and welcome back to Tipping Point, the show on Nevada County media that explores how individuals are responding to the tipping points being reached outside in nature as a result of the climate emergency. What I like to do is invite people that are our peers and community members, and normally we've been having women voices because it's important to make sure that voices that aren't being heard as much are given a voice. So that's why today I'm very excited to be joined by Nikairye Wondergem. He's a local musician, composer, and an intern here at the studio. Normally, he's on that side of the camera, but today, you're my guest. Thanks for joining me, Nikairye.
Thank you for having me.
So you've been a part of the behind the scenes of the show, and you're familiar with how this goes. I have 3 questions that are very specifically in chronological order. Ever since you've reached your own awareness level, your own personal tipping point, how have you been thinking differently, which then leads to acting differently? And then lastly, my challenge is to find out how people are communicating differently, because that's really the largest issue right now is folks aren't talking about this as much.
Right.
So let's start with the first question. How have you been perceiving and thinking about life in the world and the environment differently as your awareness has grown?
I'd say that just knowing this area very well, like I've swam in the rivers my whole life, and I know the woods pretty well around here, and I've been pretty outdoorsy in my time. I guess I've noticed some of the first things that I noticed were how much fertilizer is in the rivers, and how much algae that creates in turn of that. A few other things is the amount of plastic that is just in our environments completely has just increased, and I've noticed it in the past couple years. I more beer cans every year.
So you've actually seen, because what's different with you is you've been raised in this environment, and some of the people I've been interviewing moved here.
Right.
So what I hear you saying is that you've been actually able to perceive over time what's been happening. But not only what's been happening, what I hear is that you have an understanding of why. Because it's one thing to be able to see that the river itself is getting cloudier or more algae, but your awareness level sounds like it's been raised to be able to figure out what is happening. This isn't a mystery, it's people that are doing agriculture and not being smart about it, plastics. And the other thing that I'm really curious about too is, from your perspective as a younger generation versus some of the other people that I've had on here, how do you feel like you might be thinking differently than older generations who are actually largely responsible for this crisis?
That's a good question, and I think I have a better answer for that one. Ever since I enrolled in Bitney Prep High School, the high school that I'm going to currently graduate at now, it definitely opened my awareness to just how much is going on around us and how much you can do. Like you said, ever since I was little, my parents and people around me have kind of instilled these ideas in my head that, the environment is definitely clogged a lot, and it's clogged, and really people are clogged with consumption, and they don't realize really what they're doing because no one's acknowledging it. So coming from that, I kind of just had it instilled in me, and I took it for granted in a way, but going to Bitney kind of reawakened that awareness within me. And some of my teachers there definitely inspired me to make a difference. And just to name a few, I'd say Miss Pugel, who taught me science, definitely just made me realize how much we can do in terms of simple science and simple physics and stuff like that.
Right.
It all really is connected to the environment and everything that we do. So science, history, the history class that I had at Bitney was no other history class I've ever had. They covered events that were left out of other textbooks and that people just went over. So a lot of uncovered details and untold stories were taught me in the past 2 years, and that definitely just made me realize how much we are unaware of and how much is kind of fed to us in a way where there is like kind of a status quo where everything is just all right and we'll do something about it eventually. And it kind of just destroyed that. And it was like, no, we are in a crisis right now in terms of water, the environment, gas, population. And it made me just want to make a difference. And it made me buckle down and say, what are the skills that I have, like music, art, what can I do to make a difference and with those skills?
Well, then that's a good segue into the second question. But before I do, I want to remark on the fact that it gives me some hope to hear that you interacted with some teachers and educators that felt as though they were aligned with your thinking and people that you could actually look up to and be inspired by, because unfortunately right now a lot of the polling shows that teens and youth are very concerned about older generations who aren't paying any attention. And so this is really important for people who are watching to be able to know that if you're someone that is in a position to inspire or educate the youth, it's very meaningful and it can actually change lives, and it's a part of personal climate action. So then let's talk about what things do you feel like you maybe do differently as your awareness and perception has grown?
I'd say ever since I was little, my mom was very big on not buying plastic or packaged foods. We always got cardboard. I've heard it a couple of times on the show, but it really does make a difference. And ever since I was little, I don't remember like buying any Lunchables or sort of thing that's like a one-time use product. I always remember like buying like milk like in glass jugs and cardboard like to-go boxes and stuff like that. And my mom was never, anytime that we did bring something home packaged, that even if it was just food, she'd be like, maybe like don't do that next time. Like, I mean, we're gonna reuse that tub, but.
Right. Yeah. So part of what I hear you saying is that you're, which is a big thing we talk about, is consumption habits. You have some awareness about what you're consuming and how you're consuming it. And the big one, of course, is plastic. And I may have said it on other episodes, but I like to have people think of plastic as basically a hardened oil spill, because plastic is a petroleum product. It's made from oil. Mm-hmm. So anytime you see plastic, you're basically looking at an oil spill. And you're right that when it comes to food, that's something we have to be very diligent about, because the oil companies have coated almost everything in plastic. It's almost impossible to go to the store, even our local natural foods co-op, everything's in plastic that you could imagine. So, well then, knowing that you've been aware your entire life, and that you were raised with that awareness, and that you've been given habits that are already in line with what most of the world needs to do, I want to then talk about the last question, which is always my challenge to people. How do you feel as though you could communicate about this differently, or how are you communicating differently, knowing that this is an issue? And the reason I say this is, for many of us, we don't talk about it because we're concerned that we'll seem like we're the weirdos, when actually everyone is just as concerned for the most part. So I'm encouraging people to think about how to communicate differently. Are there any ways that you already might be communicating differently?
Back to my school, it's quite a diverse crowd there, so any chance I get to just talk with a kid, like if I hear them talking about these types of subjects, I won't like interject, but I'll sit down and I'll kind of listen to what they're discussing, and then after a while I'll maybe just throw out a few points like, did you guys ever think about how that could affect, the ocean, or like, and just not like, I won't try to like diminish people's ideas, but I'll try to get in there and just insert an alternative, so maybe they'll go home that day and be like, maybe I am clogging the ocean by buying this plastic bag or something like that.
I want to stop though and recognize something that you're doing here that I think is really valuable for everybody when it comes to communicating about the environment and the climate, and that is, first of all, I hear you describing not coming in strong, which is what some people do. And it's easy for folks who are very concerned to get very worked up.
Right.
And in that case, it kind of shuts down that ability to communicate. So I really value you talking about sitting down and listening and observing before chiming in, because The other thing that's important about communicating about the climate or anything is who are you even talking to? Because the same message doesn't resonate with everyone, even though we're all speaking English.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like the fact that you stop and listen, figure out what the conversation is and what's your part, and not coming in as a wet blanket and criticizing. You just naturally described all of the things that people should be doing, but we oftentimes struggle to do. So again, what I see oftentimes is people bullying themselves into conversations, not listening, throwing their stuff all over everybody, and then walking away. And what you just described is basically the opposite of that. So kudos for that way of communicating with your peers.
Thank you.
I'm curious about social media and whether you're someone that uses social media, and if so, do you see climate and environment related content coming through your algorithm, and whether you're pushing anything out in that realm? And because I partake in a couple of forms of social media, not all of them, and it's interesting to see really the lack of communication and interest. But for the people who are, they seem to be very interested. Oh, what's your impression?
I like to call social media the illusion of convenience. I mean, I could spend a lot of time like advertising and spreading the word and researching the word, but I more so use like the internet and social media as a tool to research background and not so much like what we can do right now. Because I mean,
it's your library, not your microphone.
Absolutely, and music is a big part of my life.
Let's talk about that. Communicating.
I'll go into that because through music, I've gained a lot of awareness about our environment and about the way we live and about the way that we interact with each other through musicians' words and wisdom. So, that being said, researching music, looking through music that has like these types of subjects and topics in them, and picking out my own interpretation of that idea, and then making my own music with that is a big part of communication.
Mm-hmm.
My main goal, I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to make an album for my senior project that hits topics that are relating to the loss to youth in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, I just mean the kids that feel like they don't have so much of a purpose and they feel a little bit like unguided or just like, like they don't have a purpose in life. And I always like to say that if you don't feel like you have a purpose in life, maybe just make life better for the next generation, or else you're just wasting space and air. So my main goal with music is to spread that communication and awareness through multiple songs that hit certain bullet points and stuff, and I'm getting there, but...
So you do the lyrics too? There's lyrics to your music?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you write the music, you do the lyrics. Do you also think about doing the artwork? Are you a visual artist for tracks or albums or that type of thing? 'Cause
I draw every day. I paint a lot. I do a lot of visual art. I haven't found a way to incorporate it into my music quite yet, but I think that if I do put out an album, it'll definitely be a hand-drawn cover. It won't be like any big industry type of deal. It'll be
nice.
Independent.
I wanna say how thrilled I am that you're bringing up art as a medium for communication, because it is really needed right now, especially as people are getting so bent out of shape and butting heads with each other. Art and creativity is an amazing way to communicate ideas and thoughts in sometimes a less threatening manner. And one of the most wonderful things I love about music is you can have a message in the lyrics and you find yourself saying it over and over and over. A really good song you're going to continue to sing over and over. If I gave you a paragraph that someone wrote, you're not going to find yourself saying that paragraph over and over every day. But if it's put to a catchy song, suddenly if there's a song about peace and justice, that's what people are singing about. So I really encourage you to continue to find ways to communicate through art and music, because those mediums are fascinating for bridging divides and getting people to open their minds. So.
Yeah. Bob Marley is a great example of that.
Yes.
I mean, just everyone knows Bob Marley, and he's one of the guys that made music in a manner that, wanted to hit certain topics and wanted to spread awareness about certain things, but didn't do it in a, screw you type of way. He
Right.
was just like, here's the facts,
Mhm.
here's the melody, and
Good song.
people sung it, and
Yeah.
it imprinted in their heads because it was a good chorus. And I think that's definitely a good way to spread communication, is making songs and creations that people like to listen to, but they're not going to get pissed off listening to it.
Right.
And we need to fix the environment. That's
Right.
not how we're going to even do it. So
It takes a very special attitude to take something that's challenging and difficult and be able to hand it in a way that's not threatening.
absolutely.
And music really does that. Well, I'm thrilled that you made time to be our guest. And even though you all might not have seen him before, he's pretty much on every single show. He's just usually on that side of the camera. So I'm being joined today by Nikairye Wondergem, local musician, composer, and an intern here at the studio. Thanks so much for being my guest on Tipping Point.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be here next month for another episode, talking to another community member and a peer that hopefully will inspire you to reach your own tipping point and take action.